Well, morning, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Still Limited. My name is Louis Mendes. Hope you guys are all well on this sunny Sunday morning. On today's show, then we'll be looking back at yesterday's 1-0 win at Cambridge. Tyreece Campbell with the only goal of the game as the Addicts look to try and keep the pressure on the sides sitting above them in the League One table. Joining me to look back at that game, first up, top right, first lady of Charlton Live is Sue Gallop. How you doing, Sue?
I'm really good. I'm better for yesterday. So yeah, it's always good to grind out a 1-0 win away from home.
Yeah, and grind it we really did yesterday. We had to yesterday. It was one of those games, but we got the 3 points. That's the most important thing. Bottom of the screen. Joining us as well is Mark Newbury. How you doing, Mark?
The Neil Harris curse is lifted. So hurrah!
So good. Morning to everyone who's joining us in the chat as well. Let us know your thoughts on yesterday's game. Mike Salmon, first one in there, saying fantastic to pick up the win after the draw last week. I don't care if it wasn't a convincing 3 points. That is all that matters. Yeah, Gary's in there, Mickey's in there, Sam in there as well. Alan, Dave, Ed, Liam, Pete, Imani, Tom, plenty of you in there. Shiny Phil and Dudley are both in there. Gazza, let us know your thoughts on yesterday's game. We're going to hear the highlights soon. We're going to hear, of course, from Nathan Jones and Josh Edwards as well. But we want to know your thoughts. Studio at charltonlive.co.uk. You can tweet us at Charlton Live or stick a live comment in the YouTube chat is the best place to do it. That's where I'm most likely to see it. Your thoughts on yesterday's game. Let us know your thoughts on the playoff race now, because I think I've laid my cards on the table already, but we're now officially over the amount of points on the graph. So as far as I'm concerned, we've done it. And if we don't do it, then something's gone horribly wrong now. But yeah, we're basically in the playoffs. We're still Wrexham dropped points yesterday. Wycombe obviously got a late win, so we're back to within 6 points of the top two. Stockport still above us as well. So there's 3 sides we'd have to overtake. But you know that conversation is refusing to completely die every time. Every time I think it's probably too much, there's still other people saying maybe. So maybe let us know your thoughts on it. If there is still an outside chance we can do it, we got to do what we got to do, and then we'll see what happens. So yeah, let us know your thoughts on that as well. Maybe we'll talk about the financials that came out during the week. I think maybe we should have a discussion about Player of the Year as well, because the voting's open at the moment. That's going to be a long discussion. Whereas last year it was right. Well, he's going to win it. Sorted. Let's move on. This year it's very much like there's quite a few different people who could win it. So let us know your thoughts on that as well later in the show. So before we hear the goal, that was a very interesting game yesterday. You always felt from the start that there was a goal there for us. I think Cambridge looks a bit shaky at the back, particularly in the opening stages. Tyreece Campbell, who for me perhaps even a surprise inclusion, obviously given the fact he missed out last week from the off, but got his goal, fantastic goal. Spent the rest of the game limping around because he was being assaulted left, right, and centre. And then second half we didn't really kick on and look like we were going to see the game out in terms of getting a couple of extra goals. It never really happened like that. We had to battle our way to that 3 points. It was a disgusting game of football. It really was. I don't think it was quite John Beck-esque from the 90s or wherever it was, but they played a certain way. We stood up to it, to be fair, and we got the 3 points, and that's all that matters at this point of the season.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm listening to you talk about it, and I'm like, sometimes I enjoy them ones a bit more because it feels, but like when it's like everyone loves a 4-0 win. Don't get me wrong, but when it's one that you've really had to fight and battle for, it feels even better. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and my mad head, but I come away. I was so buzzing because it was hard. It was a really hard game. They're really physical. I mean, thank the Lord that the ref was on it. I mean, he was all right yesterday. He was we got more free kicks than I've seen for a long time. But I think the poor TC was just getting it kicked out of him left, right, and centre. But another one of them goals that it's three pretty much like that have been exactly the same. And you'd think that teams would be sort of getting on top of that a bit, but I shouldn't have said that because now I've drawn the attention to it. But I just think like I really admire the strength of character in our side to be battling like that at a team that they're battling for their lives. They're trying to stay up. They made it really hard for us. But at the same time, I felt comfortable. You probably don't agree with me, Louis, but I didn't feel like they were going to score, because I think even defensively we looked pretty solid. So yeah, I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I loved 2 minutes of it. I loved the minute in which Tyreece scored, and I loved the minute at the end when the referee blew the final whistle. I mean, you were praising the referee there. I think I praised him to high heaven when he blew that final whistle, because I mean, it was massive for us to get the 3 points, but also it meant we could stop watching that second half, which was so dogged and ugly. But you know, like we say, how many sides have we watched, Charlton sides, over the years that would absolutely buckle under that sort of pressure? And yeah, I felt the last 10 minutes dragged on, put it that way. I felt a little bit nervous again. But again, we've said it quite a lot over the last few weeks. How many times have we gone into the last 10 minutes, felt a bit nervous, but actually come out of it going, well, to be fair, they probably had 1 half chance, 2 half chances. But really, we did what we had to do. And yeah, I'm pleased that we got the 3 points. And it is a massive one. We battled for it. And that's all that counts come 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Right, let's have a listen back to the goal from Charlton TV. Brownie was alongside Tell.
Gillespie out to the left-hand side is Edwards, trying to send Campbell on his way. And can Campbell get there before Gibbons? He does on this left-hand side. Into the penalty area now. Campbell takes a shot and scores! Tyreece Campbell back on the score sheet after getting back in the side. The Addicts 1-0 up.
Yeah, there's a lot of good in that. It's a brilliant transfer of weight from Campbell on the run, goes to receive short and spins in behind. That's then got to be recognised. It is by Edwards, deep in his own half, with a beautiful 60-yard ball in behind Gibbons. He can't catch Campbell, no two ways about it, but what he can't do is let him cut back on that right foot, which he does. Once he does that, that brings the far left-hand post into play. We've seen him score a very similar goal in recent weeks, Tyreece Campbell. And what I like about him the most in recent months is he might have passed that, or he might have driven a little bit closer to the goal. Now when he gets half a chance to shoot, he's taking it. Great accuracy. Little curler inside that left-hand post. Charlton lead.
Marvellous. I mean, let's start on Tyreece Campbell then. So it's 4 goals in his last 3 games, Mark. And as Sue mentioned, 3 of them very, very similar goals, really. Like the way he's just shaped, opened up a little bit of space on the left-hand side and shaped a shot into the far corner with his right foot. Exactly the sort of finish where, I mean, when he did it against Huddersfield, we were like, oh, brilliant. We've wanted to see that finish from him for quite a while now. And he's doing it consistently. And it was such a good finish and such a good goal. I thought, from where I was sitting in the press box, originally I thought it maybe had gone through the keeper a little bit. But actually, I'd done the keeper a bit of a disservice there, because it was a well-measured shot into the far corner. Maybe took a slight touch on its way through, but I don't think that massively changed the direction the ball was going. And for a man that, I mean, had already been assaulted at that point and was walking around with a bit of a limp, the confidence he's shown over the last few weeks and the way he finished that chance was just superb.
Yeah, and he could have had a second. I mean, the goalkeeper made a really good save, because the second one was going in as well, which he's curled it came in from that side. You put him one-on-one with anybody at the moment, and he has got the confidence to skip past them, go left, go right, equal-footed. And yeah, it's funny. It's one of my bugbears in football, where people say, oh, you've got to protect the skillful players a bit more. I think the referee just has to referee the game properly. And if you see things, deal with them, start handing out cards early, because anyone who's watched us know how important he is, and they've set up to do exactly what I would do if I was playing against us, which is maybe get physical with him, try and sort of like push him out, try and like dishearten him. But the thing is, this season, and it was noticeable when he came back, he'd obviously been in the gym, he'd got himself, a bit of muscle up top, and he's not afraid to sort of like come flying in and, get involved in things. And when he turned around and pushed their player, who went down like he'd been shot from the stands, you're thinking, get up, you Jess. It's just like he's really a player whose confidence at the moment must be, 100%. It really is. And it's good, when you see the name on the team sheet, I think that also resonates for the fans, because you're thinking, we saw how we were last week without him. weren't as good. Simple as that. We weren't as good without him. He's back on there. And you're thinking, okay, that's exactly the front I want to see. And unfortunately, he is going to have to learn to deal with that. But the best way to deal with that is get up, go past someone, put it in the back of the net. And he's given us some major S-housery to the away fans now, quite a lot, I've noticed, where he does go up and give it a little bit of a, I'd be shushing if I were you. So, and I don't mind that as well. Have a player the other team hate. That's what you should always aim for. If they like you, you're probably not doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen the video of the goal from inside the Cambridge end, and yeah, they certainly took a disliking to Tyreece Campbell. It was generally riled them up really, really quite a bit, but it was clear from the very off, Sue, that they were targeting him. I guess they knew that he missed last week with a minor issue. Maybe they thought he might be a little bit vulnerable to that. And I think they also knew, and I think it's fair to say that he's pretty much at the moment clearly our most expressive and dangerous outlet in terms of creating chances. So they gave it to him. Was it Gibbons who gave him the dead leg early on? Came over and gave him a bit of treatment, as Nathan Jones calls it. There was another one after the goal where, again, I can't remember if it was Gibbons again who was at him, and then as Mark said, TC pushed him. And to be fair, having seen it back, I didn't see it sort of clearly at the time, and I just saw the ref going over, and I did have a bit of concern that maybe sometimes you can see refs buying into that and saying, well, that's a two-handed push into the chest. He might not have got away with that on another day, but maybe he got away with it. Maybe the player did make a bit much of it, and the referee saw that, etc., etc. But that was a clear tactic for them, and again, I guess Tyreece just has to take that as a compliment. To be fair, and he has to learn that don't let them get to you, because they're going to try and do that. But take it as a compliment that he's been targeted, because he is the informed player in League One at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we are like the same as you. Like when he made that push, and all the Cambridge fans were shouting off, and you get a bit like, oh, you never know. And I know, like, someone's commented already that the ref didn't use enough cards, and I agree with that. But I think, in fairness, he was giving us the free kicks when they were deserved. So I think it's always difficult, isn't it? Because he is our most important player at the moment. Like, we are a team and we're playing as a team, but we saw last week what happens when he doesn't play, and that attacking strength that he's got, and he just runs through people. Like, I think it's so lovely to see one of our own do so well, and I think Nathan's definitely put that confidence in him. He is playing. I mean, he's yourself, Louis, he's the shyest boy you'll ever meet, but when he's on the pitch, he's like a different person. He's got that confidence, that drive, that strength, and I think any opposition would be frightened to play against him, and that's why he is getting targeted. So I agree with you. As much as it's horrible to see him getting it kicked out of him every game, take it as a compliment, because he is our most dangerous threat at the moment. So yeah, it's lovely to see him getting and doing what he's been encouraged to do so much. And as Nathan had said months ago, they're the things that he does every day in training, and now he's mirroring it into the matches on the pitch, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, Paul says Nathan has instilled fight and confidence in Tyreece Campbell, would have wilted in the past. And again, I don't want to bring it up too much, but there were some games last season where Tyreece was at his lowest, and I mean, I'll never forget the away game at Gillingham in the FA Cup, where, I mean, clearly the whole team had a stinker, but Tyreece just looked an absolute shadow of himself, what he is now, and that has to be coaching and management, and obviously he's had to do a lot of work himself as well. But it's just like that's so good to see how that young player has come on and become one of the best assets in League One at the moment. Dean says the coaching staff have been working on that, cutting in and finishing into the far corners for ages, and now it's paying dividends as well. Yeah, Murray said worry about how we create chances without TC, and I think that's fair, and I think that's what Cambridge knew as well. That's why they were really targeting him. I think Thierry maybe's had a couple of quiet games as well, Mark, which is part of that. I mean, after the goal, we had a couple more moments. You mentioned Tyreece's effort. We had Matty Godden hit the post. I felt sorry for Matty yesterday because it was quite a difficult game to get into, but he never stops running. And to be fair, that one chance he had, we had two chances because he hit a nice volley in the second half as well. But the one sort of, it wasn't even a half chance, that one he had from the edge of the box. He caught it so well actually on his left foot, and unlucky to see it come off the post. And at that stage of the game, Mark, I'm thinking, right, a second goal's probably coming here, but it just seemed to wilt away a little bit as that first half wore on, and towards the end of that first period, you could just feel Cambridge, without really creating anything, getting a little bit more territory and getting a little bit of a foothold in the game. And that's when you get to half time, and Nathan's got a big team talk at that point, because we know how second halves like that can go, and he made sure that it didn't become like a one-way traffic, which I think Cambridge wanted to try and turn it into.
Yeah, I think one of the most notable things this season is about how good Nathan is at doing a half-time reset. Get them in, get them focused, get them organised, and if I've not been at a game and it's been 0-0 at half time, I've not been sort of like too concerned, because I always think I don't know, I'd have to ask Joe, our stats guy, are we statistically much better in the second half for shots, etc. But it just seems to be, once he's got that organisation into him in the second half, that we then go on and look better. And a second goal would have been lovely. And, I did think the last 5 minutes where everyone was piling in the box, you're right, in seasons ago, and even sometimes during this season, we'd have probably conceded. I mean, I think two of our players getting in the way of each other for a header probably summed it up for them. And but we had bodies there, we had people throw themselves on the line, and I think noticeably is 19 clean sheets now for the season. Which, if you start the season, we go back to August and we sit down and we say, right, are we going to reach 20 clean sheets this season? I'd have probably been dragged out and drug tested, because no one would have seen that coming from. And then the points and everything else. I think defensively, I know there was the interview with Josh afterwards, and defensively just looking so good, which is, so if we do win a horrible, ugly, bitty game 1-0, because we are going to, like next week, Northampton, another team who are looking over their shoulder, they're probably going to do exactly the same thing as Cambridge did, which is try and make it physical, try and disrupt us, try and make it dirty. And it's for us to get our skilled players, our Coventries, our Smalls on the ball, get them space, and then say, right, this is what we can do going through you, this is going past you. I mean, that ball yesterday from Josh, he said, he's been told to hit the space because he knows someone's going to run into it. That's great coaching, and that's someone in a match not thinking, knowing automatically what I've got to do, and put it into a space where TC could get onto it and go, right, 1-on-1, we know what's going to happen now. So the positives are so outweighing the slightly negatives of the moment, saying what could we do without him. I get that, but I think we can overcome that issue when it arises. To worry about it now would be a bit sort of like pointless. You'd end up tearing out hair you don't have.
Well, in your case, the way the way we saw that out, there was a couple of like hairy moments. I think there was that one in the first half where Josh Edwards, to give him some credit, did amazingly well to not score an own goal. Although I think he knew nothing about what happened there, just as the cross came off his head and went back across the face of goal and went wide. But yeah, second half, I think they had one shot sort of from the edge of the box where they cut in. They had that one moment right near the end where McIntyre made a clearance almost with his face in that goalmouth scramble. But to be fair, it was one of those where they were queuing up. You think, right, this has to go in. There's no way this doesn't go in. But we had so many bodies there putting themselves on the line to make sure it didn't go in. That's why we come away with a 19th clean sheet, as Mark mentions there. I mean, the stat of us, the amount of games we've won from winning positions as well. I think it's still only 2 games all season where we've been winning and not won, which is an incredible return. We're still the only one of only 2 sides in the division not to have lost from a winning position this season. But I think so. What was it, 21 and 23 or 23 and 22? I can't remember. But we're like absolutely flying in that stat. We looked at it yesterday, and so that's why even though you feel nervous, as is natural as a Charlton fan, Sue, we have to have the belief that they're going to keep this clean sheet, because as Joseph says, keep the clean sheets coming. Goals win games, but defensive win promotion. And if it weren't for that defense this season, that defensive heart that they show, and like I say, putting those bodies on the line when they have to, we wouldn't be anywhere this year. We've had to improve that side of the game, and we've done it fourfold, because we've kept nearly 4 times as many clean sheets this year as we did last.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this over the weeks as well, haven't we? That like they defend as a team. It's not just the back line. It's like Matty Godden's getting in there. Like they're all getting involved in defending that our goal, and I think that just even more echoes the team spirit that they've got. They're all willing to muck in and do a job to make sure we get that clean sheet. I think even yesterday, like we've been worried about Lloydie not being around, but I think yesterday we were fine. Like it wasn't. I think McIntyre did a pretty solid job. So yeah, you win ugly. It doesn't matter how it happens. You've got that 1-0 win. At the end of the day, it's another 3 points. So it's the lads defending as a unit, as opposed to just relying on that back 4, back 5, however we're setting up. So it's a good sign for the rest of the season that they're all willing to just dig in and do what needs to be done.
Yeah, I'm particularly pleased for McIntyre, because he had a bad game last week and made a big error, and came back this week really well. But I mean, I made Gillespie my man of the match. He made the most clearances, only beat McIntyre by 1 on that stat, won a lot of headers. I mean, the best header for me was actually one towards the far post in the first half where a cross came over. So it would have been on your side, Sue, and won the header away, which I was really impressed with. But I thought, another player, we talk about TC coming on, like Mac has had to come on this season, and he's done that, which has been so impressive. Ed's made the point about Karoy. When he came on yesterday again. Now, so if you think Karoy started in a position last weekend that he is not suited to, and he had a bit of a stinker, if we're being honest, but when you bring on Karoy Anderson, saying this on Radio London yesterday, you bring on Karoy Anderson into that game yesterday with an hour on the clock, half an hour left to play, disruptors needed in the midfield, energy needed in the midfield, running, pressing, all that sort of stuff, getting back and helping out when needed, getting up the pitch when needed. I thought Karoy was superb when he came off the bench yesterday. Mark, he did what Karoy Anderson has got the ability to do, and I thought that was a massive performance from him. Very similar to Crawley away, like that sort of game where he is grinding it out, and we are doing the dirty side. I mean, Karoy is built for that, and he was superb yesterday.
Yeah, it's funny because Karoy's one of those players I think divides some Charlton fans. I know it definitely divides some of us on Charlton Live. There's got a couple of guys, who aren't his biggest fans. I like him. I know. I've said before, I think, one, you remember his age. He's still young, and I don't think he's developed his best position. I don't think he knows what it is yet. But you're right, his energy, his disruption, getting around, it's like Keith Jones used to be, playing alongside in our midfield, alongside Kinsella. He was never the glamour player, but he was the one who would be dogged. He'd be on you. He'd be putting tackles in, and he'd be across that pitch. And it's what Karoy does, and he's got amazing energy. And you can understand why Nathan likes him to go on and do that job. He's coachable, and I think he will improve. I think once he finds out what his best position is, which, like I say, I don't think he knows it. And I think so when he gets put into, as a square peg into a round hole, it doesn't look right, and he's not comfortable with that. But once he finds whether he's going to be that sitting mid or whatever, he will go on and do good things. And like I say, I'm a fan of Karoy. I know he's not always had the best. I think you've got to understand what league we're in, what kind of level of player we have, and in this division in general. And people say, would he get into other teams' starters? I think he'd probably get into, well, you've got to look at anyone really below us would probably like him, I'd say, if it was that. And, he has had some terrific games this season. I forget the one where he was undoubtedly man of a match, but it was just the absolutely best. And I think he's got that in him. He's got to learn that consistency. And like I say, he's got to go in and say, right, this is what I do. Am I going to be that impact player? Am I going to be pushing to be that starter and do that? At the moment, he's doing the job because that's what he's being coached. That's what he's being told to do. And any player who listens to Nathan and carries out his orders, is always going to be on that squad, always going to be in that team, always going to be there. So no, I like Roy, and I think he does a great job for us when called upon.
Yeah, Dave said Croy is either really good or really poor. There's no in between. Paul says I like him. I think he can improve by being a bit more settled on the ball, but he has the heart and energy to go places. Yeah, Paul says Keith Jones is a good comparison. Still time to improve his all-round game, says the other Paul. And I mean, this is an interesting point from Andrew, because I've heard this. I don't tend to watch the youth teams that much, back these days. But Croy, when he's been playing, when he was coming up through the youth ranks, he was known as a more sort of box to box, and he was known as being actually quite good on the ball. So I think there are levels still to go with Croy, but at the moment, if he's only offering the energy, which we know Nathan Jones loves, and that sort of stuff, then fine. That was really important to us yesterday. The other player who came off the bench, who I want to mention yesterday, again also picked up by Ed in his comment earlier on, was Mika Mbik. Ed said Mbik showed some glimpses of what he could offer with experience and positives amongst a ropey game. It only came on for a couple of minutes, but if when you're coming on as a striker with 2-3 minutes left to go, you've got pretty much like one job. It's like just to try and relieve the pressure, keep the ball up the other end of the pitch, help out when you can defensively, but when you get the ball, take it down the other end and hold it there as long as possible. And he did that 2 or 3 times. Like that was pretty much for the role he was being asked to play. That was the perfect cameo suit. Like he did exactly what he had to do. He's only on for 2-3 minutes. His first team minutes of the season. He's had his injury problems this year, but I mean, I was pleased that the players pushed him towards the fans at the end to celebrate, because I mean it's a big moment for him to get his first league minutes of the season. But also, it's not like he won a raffle. He came on and he did what he had to do. He earned that role, and he executed it perfectly.
Yeah, I think he probably did the role that Miles would have done if Miles had been there. I think he's a big strong lad for a young boy. He's got so much strength in him. And I think, he deserved that praise at the final whistle when all the lads were pushing him forward. And again, he's a very humble, down-to-earth young man. And I think he was a bit embarrassed, like some of the other younger lads have been when they've been pushed forward. But he did exactly what he needed to do. And even if it's 2-3 minutes, he would take a load of confidence from that, because he did so well. And knowing Nathan, he would have been praising him up in that dressing room after the game, because he did exactly what he asked him to do. So it'll be really, I think it's exciting to see where he'll go within our squad longer term, especially under Nathan. So yeah, it was good signs for his early days in his hopefully long Charlton career.
Yeah, already got his first goal, didn't he, last year against Cray Valley Paper Mills, which was a nice moment as well. Paul says, I can't wait to start seeing an Mbik in the style of Hansen when he finally gets a run in the first team. Right, well, you're designated song starter for that one, Paul. Couple more on Karoy as well. I mean, Dean says that Anderson is a bang average player. If we went up, he would be out of his depth. And I agree with Phil, like his first touch isn't good enough at the moment. I think there's obviously room for improvement on that. Jake says, I think Croy is a natural central defensive midfielder. I think we expected him to be a more creative player, but as mentioned, when he comes on for the bench for defensive duties, he's been superb. Yeah, and like I say, there's certainly elements of his game that on the ball, I think that needs to be improving. But the energy, the tackling, all that sort of stuff, I think it's been very good over the last few weeks. I mean, is there other players we haven't really mentioned yesterday? I mentioned Gillespie, I mentioned McIntyre. Should we touch on Doherty? I thought he was quite quiet in the first half, but there was bits in the second half, Mark, where he came out and did that pressing and chasing again. Maybe I sort of missed it in the first half, but there was a couple of moments where it really stood out, where again you could tell it was just a battle, and there was a couple of times I saw him coming out and pressurising people and winning the ball, and I thought, right, he's putting everything on the line here as captain, and when it is an ugly, dirty game like that, I guess you need to lead by example. And when I saw that in that second half, I was like, yeah, I can see that you're going to try and drag your team through with the rest of you here.
Yeah, that's what I was just going back to what I just said about the halftime reset. I think one of the things he's obviously said to Doc, right, be more vocal, be more accessible, and drag people on. And I think, he's another one who's grown into his role this season. Like we say, TC and Gillespie. I think Doc has as well. I think eyebrows were raised when he was made skipper at the start. I think a few other names were mentioned as possibilities. So I know Matty's had it and Lloyd's had it when Doc's not been there. But I think he's actually really grown into the captaincy. And you're right. I think he's the kind of player you want in that midfield who's going to, put his foot in, who's going to stick his body there, going to get his head on something. Your luxury player, not saying like Coventry's our luxury player, and he loves a tackle anyway, but his physicality isn't the same as the Doc's. So you can understand that it means something to him to be skipper, which is great. And yeah, it probably wasn't his best of games, but he did what he did. And like you say, he dragged the team with him, but the team buys into it. I don't think you find someone there who's not buying into it. And at the moment, that's our strongest thing we've got going for us. We're a team. It's not a reliance. I mean, you look at some of the team, like I say, Wickham. Kone, who I think is a really fantastic player, they rely on him. And so if you keep him quiet, you can keep Wickham quiet. Wrexham, there's no one really sort of like outstanding there. So you have to be a proper team. It's what Stockport pretty much got for them as well. They actually work as a team. And that's noticeable about all the teams in the top six, really. So, and Doc's a massive part of that. And like I say, I think he's gone into the role of skipper. And, it's a good thing. And I love it when he scores.
Lovely stuff. Right, let's have a listen to what the Addicts boss, Nathan Jones, had to say. I was there, but Nick Godwin, we did the full commentary on the game yesterday. So Nick did the interview live. He's got all the right gear to do that with Nathan Jones. This is Nick Godwin from BBC Radio London speaking to Nathan after yesterday's game.
To say that Nathan Jones is live with us here on BBC Radio London. Nathan, that feels to me like a massive 3 points. How do you feel?
Exactly the same. It's a massive 3 points. This is a really, really tough place to come. Firstly, they're fighting for their lives. Secondly, they're a Neil Harris side will be front-footed and very difficult to beat. And then the conditions were really difficult for a good footballing game. The pitch is dry and bobbly. It's slow. There's wind. So everything that can go against a spectacle is here at the Abbey Stadium. So we've had to do all the basics really well today, apart from a little scramble right at the end. I thought we were relatively comfortable, but we had to defend well.
Tyreece Campbell had an extraordinary game. You weren't sure I assume you weren't 100% sure if you were going to pick him, and then he comes in, has a brilliant start, seems to get hurt, then carries on. But he had a huge role to play.
Oh, he had a huge role to play. One, because he got the winning goal, but two, he was a threat. But then, he got some treatment, which he's going to get. He's going to get.
When you say treatment, you mean from the other team rather than medical treatment?
Yeah. A bit of. He's going to get a bit of close contact. We know that. But he had a dead leg. He kept on, but then he wasn't really at it second half. So that's why he made the change.
The second half was tough to watch to a degree. Obviously there's so much at stake at the moment. How do you process that on the pitch? Because obviously for the fans it's really taxing, and for the players as well, I imagine, because everything is still up in the air.
Well, times that by about 100, and that's a manager's feeling. Sometimes you just gotta. You quickly realise there wasn't going to be a really good footballing game. We've watched games here that haven't been footballing games. They've been really tough. Wrexham drew here. Others have lost here, and it's a tough place to come. We've seen that early on in the season. This time last year we came here exactly the same conditions and drew the game, so we couldn't let that happen. I would have liked us to have a little bit more of a cushion, but we didn't. But in the end, look, we saw it out, clean sheet, 3 points, and look, decent day.
What's it like being in this situation where you look at the early kickoffs, you see that Wrexham drop a point, you've still got to go to Wickham, you've still got to go to Wrexham as well, everything is still to play for?
Well, at this stage of the season, I'm not sure they should be kicking off early. I know TV dictates everything now, but I think, look, it gives people advantage and stuff like that. Let's get everything at the right time, and we all compete and so on, but the TV dictates constantly everything. So when you see that they drop points, does it put pressure on it? Does it give you an incentive? Don't really know. If they win, then does it dishearten you, or does it give you it's a constant thing? But right now I think we're at the nitty-gritty end, and I think everyone should be 3 o'clock so that we compete and see where we all are.
And I think you're still, is it now 6 points off the automatic promotion spots? Are you still talking about automatic promotion?
We talk about the next game. That's all we do. We talk about debriefing this one, preparing for Northampton, and that's it.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders, such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Well, welcome back to Charlton Live on your Sunday morning. Just before the adverts there, we heard from the Addicts boss, Nathan Jones, referencing the difficulty of the condition. I mean, the pitch was poor, and we're used to playing on a poor pitch this season, to be fair, so maybe not so much. But it was just a horrible game. And we're not the only side who's gone there and, I don't know if struggled's the right word, but if you look at, I mean, we're the first side out of the top 5 that's gone there and won this season. Birmingham haven't played there yet. Stockport got beat there. Wrexham and Wycombe both drew there. You know, the horrible little games to be involved with. But we did what we had to do. A lot of comments about the sort of the way the lie of the land at the moment, Sue. So 6 points off Wrexham, who's sitting second, 5 off Wycombe. Obviously, we're still behind Stockport as well, who's sitting fourth and are winning games for fun at the moment. They've won the last 4. They've won 5 of the last 6. How are we feeling about this, Mike? So Mike said, I feel that Stockport, the way Stockport are going, they could catch Wycombe. Stockport could end up 3rd, Charlton could end up 4th, Wycombe in the playoffs. I mean, you know, still talking about we want to finish 3rd or 4th to have that second leg at home. Dudley's not giving up on second yet. All the top teams still have tough games to play, including against us. It's not impossible. Keep the faith. I mean, where are we? You can't write it off until it's mathematically impossible, I guess. But what do you think, Sue? What's your feeling between now and the end of the season?
I'm probably not the best person to ask because, as you know, I am the rose-tinted one. Until someone tells me it can't happen, I'm believing that it can, because you just never know. As the old, was it Saints of Greaves they used to say, it's a funny old game. You never know what's going to happen. Like Wrexham, like hopefully they don't lose any, like you don't want people to get injured or anything like that, but someone could get sent off and like miss the last 3 games. Like anything can happen in a football match, and all the time we need to have that belief that we could do it, because we might. And I think that's where Nathan's preparation is so key, in the match at a time. Let's not think too far ahead. Focus on a game at a time. Of course, all the lads are going to be sitting there thinking, maybe we can. And that's great because they've got that motivation. But until anyone tells me that it is not mathematically possible, I think we could still do it.
Dean says that Sue actually sounded like Greavesy there as well, which is a compliment, I'm sure. But yeah, Dean says playoffs. Paul says it's glass half full Gallop. Alan reckons we'll pick up 10 points on the next 12. You know, it's not bad, is it? Ed's saying, Dudley said it's not over till the fat lady sings. Ed's saying secure playoffs, get everyone fit, and bring on anyone, whatever home leg we get. I mean, because like we're talking about, that's the other bit. I mean, I still want that top 4 finish purely for logistics, really, because it means the home game will be midweek and the away game, which, you know, as it stands, will be Stockport. You know, could be Wycombe. They're probably the 2 most likely, I think, at the moment, unless we get to 3rd, and then it could be Reading or whoever's sitting in 6th or at the end of the season. Like, I just think a home game on the midweek could be a positive for many reasons, not just because it'd be a lot easier to get to, but yeah. Liam's saying I'd rather get the best of the bunch in the semi-finals. So if we beat them, we go to Wembley full of confidence. Then we lose. We know that we've played the best of them. You're going to have to play the best team at some point, I guess, Mark. So if it is to be playoffs, what sort of tie do you want? I mean, we spoke about on Thursday about which sides we'd like to avoid, but are you better off playing at the better side over 2 games, or would you want a one-off game against the whoever the best team in the playoffs is going to be, and we're still hoping it's going to be us? I mean, what did you make of the comment just then?
Well, it's funny because it's probably why Sue and I are so good when we're on together, because she is the girl whose glass is half full, and mine's the one whose glass is half empty and has got a cigarette dropped into it or something. Probably the years of being a pessimistic Charlton fan of get to you eventually. You try not to be. I said before I'd wanted to avoid Wickham. That's the only one. I think Stockport over 2 legs. Whoever pops into the 6th place, which could be a turkey shoot now after results yesterday. You've got Reading, Bolton losing, and other teams sort of like being there. You don't know who you're going to get. I think, if Wrexham drop down and Wickham go up, I said I think we can take Wrexham over 2 legs or at Wembley anyway. So ideally for me, if I can, I still have this horrible itch about Wickham. And it's one of those things. But if we, like I said, I agree. If we lose to the best team in the playoffs, we've lost. We've got to look back on this season as a huge positive and not be downhearted totally that it didn't pan out how we wanted, and say, right, what can we can take this positive and roll on to next season, bring in some players, let a bit of Deadwood leave and bring in some players, and then take that next step. So we are the ones who are the top, who everyone is chasing next season, if we don't go up in the playoffs, if we don't go up automatically, and take it that kind of business. I know you said last week there's no guarantee we could finish 14th next season. I can't see it under this manager, under the crop of players. If we manage to keep the players who contracts are variable, shall we say, at the end of the season for another season, then I think there's a huge amount of positives. And no one, as I said, I've said this before, no one's going to be keen to play us. There's going to be other podcasts of all the other clubs, and they're going to be talking about us like we're talking about them. There's not one of them, I guarantee you, is saying, oh yeah, I'd fancy taking on Charlton. No, they don't. They truly don't. They've seen what we've done, and our consistency for the last 2 months has been, top level. A little drop, a little dip, but what we've done straight away after every dip is bounce back. And I think that shows the character, it shows the class, it shows, everyone's thinking, pulling it together. So looking at it with a pragmatic, avoid Wickham, because I've just got an itch about them. But anyone else, I've got no qualms with.
It's funny how these things work, isn't it? Because I'd love to play Wickham for some reason. They're the ones that, for some reason, I just fancy that. If we get them and we lose, I'll look very silly. But that for some reason, that's the game I want. As Stephen's saying, the pressure. If we're talking top 2, the pressure is not on us. We've done our bit now. I know we shouldn't say that, but we're in the playoffs. Like we've done what was like unthinkable in December. We've got the playoffs, so the pressure is off us now. We'll obviously Nathan Jones will not release any pressure at any point, but it is on those 2. So we had James Scowcroft with us yesterday, and he says it's funny what pressure does to us. I look at Sheffield United in the champ. They lost 3 in a row now, having been top of the league. Like look at Leeds falling apart again every other week. It's incredible how it affects those sides at the top, and we're the side just sneaking up, hoping to try and take advantage of that. Paul says, I'd love it if Wrexham fell away and fluffed the playoffs. Sadly, I don't see it happening. Dean seeing us facing Stockport in the final. Alan says it'll be Stockport or Wickham at Wembley, and we might get more fans if that happens, he says. Paul says Stockport worry him, but then again, the playoffs in general do. Stuart pointed out, it's a good point that Wickham play Stockport on the last day, so that will affect who finishes where as well. Dean says we shouldn't fear anyone going into the playoffs. No team has done the double over us this season. On our day, we can beat anyone in the league. I mean, the other thing to say, in the last 25 games, we've lost 3. Not many sides are beating us at the moment, so if it does happen, it will be against the form book. Dean says, remember, October, November shows Louis was doom and gloom and a mid-table team, and now we're second or who we want in the playoffs. It's like I say, it's that the turnaround was unthinkable. It if anyone said after Crawley, right, next 25 games, you're going to lose 3 of them, I would have thought they were absolutely mental. So, yeah, good stuff. Duncan says, good to see we're in the mix for second. The last 2 games have shown us the importance of Tyreece. Need to find another way to create opportunities, because if it could come down to Tyreece stays fit, then we could go up. Yeah, I think that's fair. Joseph saying, the 2 W's are wobbling. Top 2's not done yet. I've seen us win twice at Wembley. I don't want to push my luck. Yeah, that as someone who likes statistics, I do fear the statistic of us we've won at Wembley both times I've been there, which is weird. Ed saying controversial maybe, but if we can secure playoffs, I'd like to see Campbell and Jones given the time to come back 100% for the playoffs. I'd back us against anyone with a fully fit team. So I guess that's probably what we've seen with Lloyd Jones being out. But I think the decision to start Tyreece yesterday, when even before yesterday, we were pretty much on the verge of saying, like, we're in the playoffs now. I think I'd already said it before, like, we're pretty much there. So there was a decision to be made there that if he wasn't fully fit, then you don't risk him. But Nathan either knew it wasn't a decision to be made, or he did take that decision, Sue. So I think Nathan's laid his card on the table there. I'm going to suggest Lloyd not quite ready yet, and not being risked, but TC, they're in a position it's like, well, even if it is a risk, I want to go and win these games and get it sorted.
Yeah, and I think obviously when last week, when he was talking after the game about some of the decisions that were made and being a little bit complacent and stuff, I think maybe that was one of the decisions where he's just like, well, I'm just going to go for it. Like, I need to play my strongest side. And if they're available and they can get through even like 60 minutes, I'm going to have it. Like, I think this back end, if we still mathematically can get second, he will do everything in his power to make that happen. So if one of my players, even if they are carrying a little bit of a knock, if I'm confident that he can get through 60 minutes, I'm going to play him. So, yeah, I think how we set up, he always wants to play our strongest side. And I think Lloydie potentially with next weekend coming up with 2 really tough games for very different reasons, I think he wanted to just give Lloydie that extra few days to be up for particularly the Wickham away game.
Dean says, I think if it's playoffs by the time we play Burton, then Jones will rest a few. So then I'm thinking back to Bo's first season. We went to Rochdale on the final game of the season, knowing that literally we were in the playoffs unless there was about a 12-goal swing with us, and I think it was Plymouth or someone like that at the time. So we rested players. We lost 1-0 at Rochdale. It was actually quite a great day for Rochdale. They stayed up and it was quite exciting, and it was quite funny. But watching the little kit man jumping on the top of the dugout, if anyone remembers that. But then we went into the playoffs having rested players, and we struggled against Shrewsbury. And maybe you're reading too much into it, but do you think, well, is it because we rested players and we lost some momentum or something like that? Or then you look at the game at home against, might have been Rochdale again actually, or was it? It's towards the end of the season when we won 4-0. On the last day of the season at home, ended up finishing third the next year. Was it Rochdale? I can't remember. And we won 4-0 and flew into third, and we flew out the traps against Doncaster because we hadn't lost that momentum. Maybe reading too much into it, but yeah, Nathan will have a decision to make there. He made a point yesterday, Mark, which I hadn't really given too much thought about, but the kickoff time. So the last 2 weekends, we've known that Wrexham and Wickham have both played before us. Both had 12:30 kickoffs, and in both games we've had the disappointment of one of those sides going on to get a late win. So that's probably knocked us a little bit, knowing that Wrexham scored 3 late goals last weekend, Wickham scored a late goal yesterday. So we know there's two of the sides haven't dropped points, but then on the other side of it, we knew that the week before Wickham, I think, lost, didn't they? And yesterday, obviously, Wrexham dropped points, so we had that little lift knowing that one of the teams had, but we need both teams to be dropping points. Scunthorpe was the 4-0. There we go. Cheers, Matt. All these northern teams sort of merge into one after a while at this level, don't they? But what did you make of that point? And Nathan saying that all the teams should be kicking off at the same time? Because so Good Friday and Easter Monday we're all 3 o'clocks, but then the day we go to Wrexham and we're 5:30, well, obviously Wickham would be playing before us anyway. But I mean, they're a 12:30 again. So again, we'll go into that game knowing more than we'd know if they hadn't played. And does that affect us? Does that? I mean, Nathan says it gives them an advantage. Do you see it that way?
No, I'd like to know how the time they play, how we can affect the outcome of their game. We can't. We've said as a mantra, you can only do what you do. You can only control, regardless of what other teams are doing. You can only do. But if they kick off, 1 a.m. in the morning, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference. We still have to go out. We still have to go out and beat Cambridge yesterday. It's not like if they had both lost, we'd have gone out and go, oh, we can afford to lose this. That's the wrong kind of mentality. I think, the last day of the season, everyone kicks off at the same time. And like you said, over Easter, you have that. But to be honest, I find it sometimes, are they looking for not an excuse as such, or a reason to add something on? But I don't think it's relative. I really don't, because you should, as a professional, you might say, oh, we've heard they've won. That shouldn't change your focus at all. You should be going to that dressing room 100% focused on what your job is for that day. Keeping a winger, quiet, defending well. You do what you do. The other teams, absolutely irrelevant apart from their final results. For time they kick off, irrelevant. Final results are relevant to us. Time they kick off, it's not relevant. I don't feel, in my book. I mean, other people probably disagree with that. And I think it's advantage, disadvantage. I don't know if stats would ever back that up. Yes, you know what they've done. Does it change the way you play? It shouldn't 100%.
Yeah, Paul says just win the games. Right, a couple of emails came in as well. McSquared said another crucial away win in very tricky conditions. A fully deserved 3 points. Resolute defending once again. Cambridge posing very little threat. TC came up with the goods and could have well had another, but for a fine save. A minimum 5th place finish now, all but guaranteed. Just a question of seeing if we can improve on that position. Our biggest concern has got to be, though, the lack of squad depth in terms of quality. TC appears to have become indispensable with regard to our attacking potency. Once he was withdrawn yesterday, we didn't really look like scoring again. Our playoff rivals will be fully aware of this. Gary says, great scrappy win yesterday against Cambridge. Brackets, hope they go down. I can now see a playoff final, Charlton against Wrexham. That's Coops of Woolwich. I think hoping they go down for Cambridge. I think that's pretty much them done now, unfortunately for them. But you're not going to win many prizes playing that sort of football. You can't just kick your way to to staying up, unfortunately, for Neil Harris. Right, let's have a listen to the interview with Josh Edwards. Again, it was Nick Godwin from BBC Radio London who had a chat with the man who laid on the assist for yesterday's goal.
Yeah, Josh Edwards, the wing-back and assister for the goal, is here as well. Congratulations, a hard-fought victory.
Yeah, it was. We knew that coming here today. The gaffer drilled it into us all week that obviously Cambridge are fighting for our lives, and we knew they were going to put pressure on us throughout the game, which is what they did. But thankfully we stood up to it and took the 3 points, which we're delighted about.
Not an easy pitch. Tell us what it's like to play on.
No, it's not an easy pitch, no. But both teams have to play on it at the end of the day, so I think there's certain things maybe you have to do a bit differently on a sort of bobbly pitch. With certain bounces you might usually you take a touch, but sometimes you just need to hook it on. But that's part of the game, and we knew that coming here, so both teams had to do it. So yeah, I'm glad we won the game. Sorry I stumbled there.
No, don't worry. What's it like playing in these end of season games when there's everything on the line for everybody, everything on the line for Cambridge, everything on the line for you as well, but there's got to be a spectacle, someone's got to try and win it?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, like I just said, they're fighting for their lives, we're trying to get ourselves promoted, so there was a lot of, I wouldn't say pressure, but there was a lot of riding on the game, so we knew that coming here that we're going to have to stand up to it, and I'm glad we did and took home the 3 points.
The defensive improvement this season for Charlton is extraordinary. Louis Mendes was just saying 5 clean sheets last year, that's 19 this season. How come the transformation has been so extraordinary?
I just think it's the what we've been doing on the training pitch. Like the gaffer said to me when I first came down here at the start of the season that we need to keep more clean sheets, and he's drilled it in for us since day one. Our defence, we all know where to be with our defensive structure. We've worked on it all season, so I think we pride ourselves on, and we're glad we got another one today. It was massively important.
Do you spend time before the game looking at what's going on in the early kickoffs? Because Wrexham dropping points, Wigan winning, you have to go to both of those. Is that something that, as a player, when you're preparing to go out in a significant game like this, you can think about, or do you push that all to the back of your mind?
No, well, you know they're playing early, but it's something I would never personally look at it. It's nothing that I would do. I'd focus on the game. When it comes to 5:30, when you're showered and in the bus, maybe you'll have a wee look at it then, but not for me. It's something I wouldn't do, and the gaffer definitely always says to us, make sure we focus on ourselves. Always focusing on ourselves.
And there could be a few more of these. There could be a few more tight games with everything on the line. The rest. How are the players feeling about what could be a really excruciating but potentially brilliant end to this campaign?
No, it's exactly where you wanted to be at the start of the season. Like, I had a chance of getting promoted, going into the championship, and it's what you want to do. It's why I came. I want to push to get as high possible level as we could. So I'm absolutely delighted with the position, and we're all absolutely buzzing and cannot wait to play again Friday.
There you go. That's Josh Edwards. So it disappeared down a hole towards the end of the interview there with Nick Godwin. Been a fantastic player for us. Done well to recover from his injury as well. It took him a few weeks, didn't it? But he's clearly back to his very best now, which has been really, really good. Paul says he's Kidbrooke's most famous resident. Not exactly difficult, I guess. I don't know who else lives in Kidbrooke, but there we go. Steve says the running pretty much tells us where we will all finish. Wrexham have it easier, so they will get second, followed by Stockport, Wickham, us, and then Reading or Bolton. So Steve's predicting a 5th place finish for us, which would mean Wickham, according to him, which, it's not the end of the world, I guess, but according to me, and it is the end of the world according to Mark. So we'll see how that plays out. Right, We'll do the Player of the Year chat on Wednesday. We're going to bring Thursday's show forward to Wednesday, obviously, as we always do for the Good Friday game, which I haven't told anyone else on the show yet, so hopefully they can all do that. But that's the plan. But I just thought maybe we'd just touch on the financials that came out during the week. So the accounts for 23-24. So this is the first year with the current ownership and obviously Charlie's boys and that sort of stuff running the club. Showed revenue going down 10%, wages went up nearly 20%. The operating loss, which is I guess the most important thing, went up nearly 50% to £14.5 million, which is a very large a very large amount. Severance pay was quite high. Executive pay was very, very high. Sue, very interesting financial accounts as well. Mark, I mean, I'll let you have your say on this, Mark. What did you make of those numbers? Because a lot of the people involved with those numbers have since been asked to not be involved with those numbers anymore.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, numbers aren't my thing at all. I looked at the figures and thought to myself, I wouldn't know how they'd even start to work all this thing out. All I think is that we are League One, we are a selling club. You need to sell every summer. If someone comes in, we don't go up and someone comes in, you need to sell, let a couple of your assets go and try and make some money back there, because we have to have that money coming in. We can't carry on making a loss. The execs giving themselves a nice wedge. It's one of those things that, if it's not going on Land Rovers and flats in the Docklands, you don't know how it's all signed out and what they've all agreed up to. It's a difficult one financially, because most clubs at our level are probably operating at a loss. Whether we're operating at the loss we're operating on, we've got a very big stadium to fill and look after and run. I know Nathan's been trying to trim the squad and get it down, and we haven't gone mad this season apart from one player. That probably would have helped the bank balance, but whether that had been next year's finances, I don't know. You're right. I mean, I think it's one of those things with finances, you have to give it a couple of seasons to almost level out. As a season, you're going to get peaks and troughs with everything. You have a good season, bad season. Like I say, a promotion would be huge for us because that would really up the income. Season tickets would go up, ticket prices, we would do more tickets, more away fans, indoor revenue would come in. We are paying the price for being a League One side for quite a few years now, unfortunately, and difficult. In honest answer, I wouldn't know really where to start on analysing. We would probably need to start at the beginning of a show doing this, not sort of like at the end of a show, because I don't know the deep dives onto in the ins and outs of everything.
Yeah, I mean, the things that stood out for me is if you look at the revenue that's coming into the club, so just under £9 million, then we're spending £2 million of that on executive pay. I mean, we've been saying quite a lot about how top heavy the club looks, and that does seem a bit ridiculous. And I think, as I've said at the time, it's absolutely no coincidence that when Gavin's come in and had a closer look at everything that's been going on, then quite a few big names have been asked to leave the club. And I don't think, no matter how people want to colour their own departure, those numbers are quite embarrassing, really. Like, I know there's lots of things that go into that, but let's just, people want to say how great they did when they left the club, but actually they've been asked to leave the club in this situation. And then you look at these numbers and I don't know. Let's just say it's a good job that Nathan Jones has turned this club around on the field of play, because some of those things are quite concerning. And like I say, I think people have left now, and that's hopefully lessons have been learned. Hopefully the American ownership that sort of oversee the club will be able to take things forward. But yeah, those numbers for the first year were pretty shocking. Right, we've run out of time. In fact, we've gone over time. So we'll talk about Player of the Year stuff on Wednesday. We'll be back on Wednesday, as I said, to look ahead to Northampton. We'll bring everything forward a day. I'm not really sure what the plan is for over Easter, but we might do a show on the Saturday after the Good Friday. But I'll get all my ducks in a row and see what we can do with that. But yeah, massive thanks to everyone who's joined us live in the chat this morning. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss a show. Don't forget to check out our merch store as well, charltonlive.etsy.com. If you want to, can you buy people Easter presents and they be mugs? I don't know if you want to, but that's an option. Yeah, put a chocolate in it, and that's an Easter present for your Charlton Live mugs. So check that one out. Subscribe to the pod wherever you see it. Massive thanks to Sue and to Mark. Been an absolute pleasure as always.
Yeah,
No
thanks
worries, mate.
everyone.
Lovely stuff. So I'm Louis Mendes. This has been Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. As I said, we'll be back on Wednesday to look ahead to the Good Friday game with Northampton. We shall see you then.